Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Alyssa Corum and Ed Carson here, and on today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the charts of Datadog, AMD, and Facebook. But first, let's take a look at those major indexes. So we did have the NASDAQ intraday hitting positive territory, but reversing lower in the red for most of the day, but really those losses started to accelerate towards the end of the session, Ed, with the NASDAQ closing down over 2%. Same for the S&P 500 and the Dow down 1.9% for the day. What do you make of the action?
Yeah, it was not a great day. You never want to see this, outside day, negative reversal, closing at lows. All those are pretty negative. But the Nasdaq had rallied for 6 straight days. You could certainly argue that we were due for a pullback. You can see there's sort of like that fuchsia line. That's the 10-day moving average. We're still not even at that. The S&P and Dow are more at that level. But so we've pulled back. It's arguably there. I mean, some people would say, hey, is the stock market rally disconnected from economic reality? And I'm going to write about that tonight. I mean, the fact is the NASDAQ and a lot of the growth stocks in there, those are generally good plays. I mean, some of the stocks we're going to talk about there, they either are coronavirus plays or you can see them surviving, thriving in that environment. So while today wasn't great, you look at the context, we've come up a long way, and there's reasons certainly why at least certain sectors should be rebounding nicely.
Yeah, well, we'll keep an eye on those market conditions, and you'll have to check out the big picture article this afternoon and Ed's futures column tonight, both at investors.com, for further details on where we stand in this uptrend. But let's take a look at some individual names. Datadog, definitely a bright spot. We talked about this one on IBD Live this morning, and even before the earnings report, this one was on our radar, a relatively recent IPO in that enterprise software group, working on a base heading into its report, and a massive breakaway gap today, gaining 24% massive volume on that earnings report. And this one really closing at the highs of the day. What do you make of this move?
I mean, it's a great move. The earnings are great. I mean, it was supposed to have a loss. It turned into profit, which isn't that surprising. It wasn't supposed to be much of a loss. Strong guidance. The thing is, it had already broken out, and would have been really hard to buy this ahead of earnings. I mean, Bill and Neil always used to say, you can't kiss all the babies. Well, you can't play with all the puppies, and that's a situation here. I mean, it's just like this was great action. Maybe there was a downward trend line you could have bought, somewhere on the 40 area. It sort of created sort of a quasi handle there, but really wasn't a great opportunity for that. Yeah, if you draw sort of in there, maybe if you sort of wanted to hit, squint at it, but that would have been tough. Now it doesn't look so bad, but it did correct quite a bit during the correction. So, again, not every stock, but this is doing very well, and it's there's been a lot of big winners like this.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned being tough to handle. We've been talking during this earnings season how we handle stocks heading into those earnings reports, and you definitely want a cushion. So gambling with a breakout 2 days before the report, definitely there's added risk there. But we'll keep this one on our radar because a compelling growth story here for sure. And pivoting our attention over to AMD in the chip sector, a downside reversal here, down 3.6% for the day, just one session after a pretty bullish day for advanced micro devices, Ed.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't great. You saw this with other chips, especially some of the growth names. It did lag a little bit after its earnings. There's some of the other data center chip makers, NVIDIA, Inphi, some other ones like that have done better. But this one was coming around. I mean, it does have a 58.73 buy point. And if you drew a downward sloping trend line, it was sort of like right at that level. And, if you go down, or maybe not quite so steep, it was probably getting around there. So if it goes back above, like today's high, that might be an early entry point. The growth story is compelling: 300%, 200% earnings growth in the last 2 quarters, really strong sales growth. So there's a lot of reasons to like it, but this is one reason why you want to wait for the actual breakout, really get a good, area. It was a down day today in the market, and leading stocks are going to feel that too.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely keep this one on our watch list and see if it can start crossing that downward sloping trend line or near that handle area. But last but not least, let's take a look at the chart of Facebook, which is nearing a buy point, that relative strength line, even with a 1.4% decline today, that relative strength line hitting a high, and of course, that RS line measuring price performance versus the S&P 500. So to see it hit a high before the stock is hitting price highs is pretty compelling.
Yeah, and then the stock is doing, coming back. They had since earnings came in, the earnings were all right, but and they also talked about that advertising was stabilizing. I think that made people feel better. Okay, maybe conditions will get better because everybody's paying, on their phones or on their computers, on Facebook, Instagram during all this stay at home, but nobody was sure if
Mm-hmm.
anybody was advertising. So if that gave people confidence, you see Facebook and Google actually, as your arrow is pointing over there to that blue dot, that's reflecting. We highlight stocks that are hitting with the RS lines hitting new highs while they're still in bases, which is exceptionally bullish. Maybe you could go to you can find all those stocks if you go to the open stock ideas list. They actually come down, scrolling down. 15 stocks. So these are stocks that that are in patterns. A lot of good ones to be looking at. Google, Apple did today, at least on a weekly chart. So a lot of really good names. It's a great place to find stocks that are really outperforming but haven't broken out yet. Uh, so Facebook is another one doing very well. And another one that you'd say, well, you understand why it's doing okay in the coronavirus and why the stock might be doing well.
Yeah, well, that's such a great tip there, Ed. That RS line blue dot list, we definitely like that one. And you can be sure that the conversation will continue tomorrow morning on IBD Live, where we're talking about all the hottest stocks that are making notable moves and providing in-depth perspective on current market conditions. So don't miss it. Check it out at investors.com/IBD Live tomorrow morning, starting 10 minutes before the opening bell and running through the first hour plus of trade. We've been getting pretty lengthy with those sessions, but we sure do love it.
Yeah, we do. It does feel like, with all these things with these events and Zoom meetings, so that we're on Zoom about 8 hours a day. But IBD Live is great.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Check it out. We'll see you there tomorrow morning, and we'll see you right back here after the close.